Okay, the video you guys asked for this month is basically defense from red flag intruders showing up in MRAPs. They're conducting a raid on you. Now, I've been thinking about it the past few days. How the hell can you do it? And truthfully, you can't. Always remember, with a guerrilla, you only fight when you have the advantage. And in this situation, you will be outnumbered, you will be outgunned. They will catch you probably with your pants off, not just down, but off. So, what's the situation we have here? We're in a residential, okay? Street here, alley here, neighbor, neighbor, your house, garage, garden, and then, obligatory vegetation around the house that gives you a little bit of obscuration and that stuff, protection from the neighbors looking in all the time type things. Now, we're going to give ourselves a single-story home on this one. Size of the neighbors really doesn't matter. They're just there. Now, what's probably going to happen? I don't have operational specifics as to how they do this, but I can take somewhat of a guess of what's going to occur. Now, they will put in a cordon on the street. They will block off the street, probably with your standard squad cars. And they'll do that, down near the corners. Try to put some distance between them and you. We're saying we're kind of like in the middle of the block on the street here. Well, one of the first things they're going to do quietly when the street corners are getting blocked off, and no, they're not going to tell your neighbors. They ain't going to say shit, because they don't want a neighbor tipping you off. But as they're closing off the corners, they're going to have a vehicle or two drive up, park itself right behind the doors on your garage. They're going to block your escape. They will dismount a team back here. That team will then look through the windows inside the garage, see if anyone's inside. They could potentially kick in the door and enter also. It depends on how many people they have to do this. They will have people come up in the front here in the yard. Now, it'll really depend on what the terrain is in the front. Are you raised? Are you sitting on top of a hill? Do you have a fence in front, or what it is? But even if you have a fence, more than likely they're going to do this anyway. They're going to come in from one of the streets here. You'll have two vehicles come in. One's going to park in right here. One's going to park in right here. They will have someone doing security. Gunner on here. Well, you could consider him a gunner. It'll be an officer with an M4. He's going to be watching this way. He's going to be watching the front of the house. The one that's here, he's going to be watching this way. He's going to be watching this way. You're going to have the teams then dismount. They're going to come to your front door. They're going to kick it in. They're not going to give you warning. And they will take you down. That's how I could foresee something like this happening. Getting a good idea on this, I think that we've had a lot of foreshadowing on this, training us to accept this over the past few years. If you remember, a couple years ago, or within the last 5 years, there was a big thing with the SWAT TV shows like Kansas City SWAT and New York SWAT, Houston SWAT, Dallas PD, whatever crap shit. They had those TV shows on all the time, getting people interested in SWAT raids and that stuff, keeping it in their mind that SWAT teams only ever go after drug dealers. They only ever go after the people that are a real threat to society. They're conditioning people on that to accept the raids and to accept the justification for them. So don't count on too much support from your neighbors in this situation. Now, before they conduct their raid, they're going to want to know every detail about you, about your home. They will talk to anyone who has been inside. They will talk to family members. They will talk to friends. They will talk to delivery people, your UPS guy, your FedEx, whatever. They will talk to your mailman. They will talk to your utility person, your cable person, the phone company, anyone who potentially has been inside the home. They will look up information in your county or parish records, any details on the home, what building permits have been filed and what for. Are there any blueprints or diagrams of records anywhere? If your home was purchased within the last 20 years, you purchased it, it more than likely had been posted online on a realty site. When they posted that, you can guarantee they had a floor plan picture in there too, with pictures of the interior. That's going to give them a lot of information they need to know about the layout of the house. They're trying to get as much intel as they can. They're trying to find out where the bedrooms are. Which bedroom is which? Where would the target be, the primary target? You. Where would the family members be? Where potentially would you store your guns, or do you store the guns? That's where the talking to your friends and family comes in. Now you're probably going to say, well, my family's not going to say anything. Your family will. All they have to do is threaten the kids, or they find that one family member who's you have a falling out with but knows the property fairly well. They'll pass information on to the police. They need as much intel as possible before they commit to this operation, just like we do, just like any guerrilla does. You need as much intel as possible on your target before you go in so that you can plan accordingly. So, but they're going to want to cut off your escape to the front, escape to the rear. That at a minimum. Could they put people on the fence line? It's possible, but I think you have the two vehicles here. You're covering the sides, so if anyone comes out a window, you're going to see it. Anyone goes out the back, these guys are going to see it and take care of it. They'll have their little team here. Hell, they might leave a couple people back here as overwatch. You still got the person up here pulling security. He's watching that door. If he sees the door open on the garage, he's going to start pumping rounds inside. You might have some that are going to push forward, kick in the back door, and come in that way. These guys are going to be the last ones to show up there because they're the ones that are going to make the most noise. They're going to come in there. They're going to kick in the door. They're going to toss flashbangs in through the windows and that stuff to disorient you, keep you thrown off that you don't know what's going on. If any neighbor shows up, asks what's going on, they're probably going to tell them that, well, it's a drug deal. Or they're going after someone who was planning a terrorist attack. Some pre-arranged excuse that they will already have package dealed. And then once they're inside, well, the neighbors outside aren't going to be able to tell who's firing which shots. So the shots that are going off in there, more than likely, are going to be coming from these officers. But they can tell the people outside that, well, you tried to resist. They identified themselves as officers when they went inside, and you ignored it and started shooting at them, maybe yelled something like, F you pigs, as you're pulling the trigger. And your kids were gunned down by you to keep them from falling into Zionist hands or whatever. You know, they'll have a way to paint you as a complete frickin' nut job. So, how can we defend against this? First off, our own little tripwire and intel. If we have contacts within the department or with relatives of the department, if they get word that there's going to be a raid, that needs to go out to the appropriate people. It needs to go out within the Patriot community in that area, especially the person that's being targeted. If we find out the date and the time, that target needs to make sure to not be home. They need to quietly slip the hell away before the raid occurs. Preferably a few hours before. Have your little bags, hidden inside the garage there. You just load them up inside the trunk of your vehicle, inside the back of your SUV. Make sure they can't be seen through the windows. And you drive off like you're going to the supermarket or you're going to the store, that type of things. You slip away quietly. That's your first choice. Next option, you're at home and you did not get warning. They're trying to come in. Well, what can you do? You need to slow them down, first off. As has been mentioned, as I've said to people, and as Kaz has mentioned at Fourth Dimension, first, strengthen your doors. Strengthen the jambs on the doors so they're not going to give away easily. Get some reinforcing plates and that stuff to reinforce the door jamb for your deadbolts and the latches. Add longer screws to your hinges into the door frame itself and into the door. You're going to be looking at 2.5, 3-inch long screws, preferably stainless steel. Drywall screws, they'll hold a little bit, but the heads do have a tendency to break off. So that's why you're probably going to want to go to get the actual stainless steel screws. You're going to have to pay a little bit more. If your hinges have the option of adding additional screws in it for reinforcement, do it. Hopefully you have a decent door on it, not just a crappy little hollow core wood door that they can just bust right through by just putting their shoulder into it. At a minimum, make sure that your door has steel front, steel back. They do make those as kind of decorative doors and that stuff. Try not to have one that is half glass. There's a lot of those that have, like half the door is this decorative window type thing. Replace that door. Get one that has the smaller little window on it or no window on it. And if you have the smaller little window on it, they do make ones that have like a little decorative steel caging that goes over the outside, so it gives it that kind of Gothic look or Mediterranean or medieval, whatever. Best off, get a hold of the steel fire doors like you see inside office buildings and stuff, and then put a facade on the outside of that going to the outside of the house so it looks decorative and blends in a little bit. But those doors are damn near impossible to get a hold of, and they cost a lot if you do. And if you're going through replacing the door, then I would try to put in a steel door frame. Now, the outer combination door or screen door, they do make some that are security doors. They are heavier gauge steel. They do have a decorative caging over the outside that cannot easily be pulled off, cannot easily be bashed in. The latches on them are protected with a piece of angled steel so someone can't just jimmy them easily. They usually have better latches and stuff on them also to prevent the door from being pulled off quick and easy. Get a hold of some of those for your front and rear or whatever entrance you have into your home. And that includes on a second level. If you have one of those second floor patios or decks on your house, you see this on the home sometime. Well, guess what? They can drive an MRAP up through your fence into your yard. Hell, drive through your neighbor's fence to get into your yard. And I have seen them in some of these cop shows where they will put across an extension ladder or basically a little drop bridge going right to that deck. And they will go from the top of the MRAP right up onto that deck because they know that that upper door is going to be less secure than the first floor door. and then they will enter through that door. They'll hit you from the top going down. Doesn't matter to them, they're still getting inside. So reinforce your doors. Also, reinforce the windows on your first floor and basement. If possible, basement windows. Replace the windows with the glass block. Glass blocking concrete. They're not going to try kicking that in, and if they're going to spend the time trying to bash them out with a sledgehammer, hey, more power to them. Reinforce the existing windows by putting over the security film. 3M makes it and some other companies make it. It usually goes on by, you go through, you clean the window, put on a wet, soapy type solution, lay the film over the top, dry it, and all that type of stuff. Each film is different. They do get a little pricey in that stuff, but get a hold of what you can. Reinforce all your first floor windows and your basement windows. Reinforce all your doors. Make sure that the doors going to the outside have good deadbolts on them. Not just regular key locks, but good deadbolts with a pretty good throw going into the door frame. Reinforce over the door frames with metal brackets, metal plates. All depends on, are you putting in a new door or reinforcing an existing door. Now, all you're trying to do, you're trying to slow them down. So they're bashing on the doors, they're trying to break the windows. They can't toss the flashbangs in the windows because the security film is stopping it. It bounces back out. It goes off in the officers' faces, temporarily stunning them. You still got the team on the door hitting it with the battering ram or sledgehammer or whatever the hell they have. What do? First off, have it pre-arranged with your family. Make sure to practice it. Make sure they know this by heart, what they're supposed to do if there is an attempted break-in like this. Get off of your first floor, get down into the basement if you can. Why? Because if these guys get frustrated out here, they're just going to start hosing down the house itself, sending the bullets through. Well, they won't do that because they could hit the neighbors. They will do it if it's their orders. It has been done before to Patriots where they've driven up on the house. They didn't even try going inside because they knew the place was reinforced, that they wouldn't get through the door, so then they literally started pumping rounds inside the home to kill the person inside, and then they set fire to the place to make sure. So get off of that first floor, get down to your basement. Hopefully you have a hidden area somewhere inside the basement. If you're lucky, if you're in a home that allows for it, say you got an old cistern or something down in there that you've been turned into a safe room or a bunker or whatever. You got an old root cellar in there that you've made disappear by adding additional shelving, whatever the hell it is. Your family needs to get down in there, hunker down, get accountability that you're there. Now, the parents should get a hold of their firearms if they're willing to. One of the parents is probably not going to be willing to. It's probably going to be the wife. She may not be of the attitude of fighting back, except at the last minute. She needs to be in charge of making sure that the kids are down in your little shelter area. Now, for you, I recommend you have 3 things, actually 4 things, sitting by that near your bed, not in a closet hidden underneath stuff, near your bed that you can grab quickly. 1, your body armor. 2, a protective mask with carrier. They're probably going to try employing tear gas against you, so you need to be prepared for it. 3, you need to have ammunition on your body armor in bandoliers. 4, your weapons ready to go. So they're starting to break in. You hear them hitting that door. Get that body armor on. Snap on that protective mask if it's not already attached to the body armor. Get that ammunition tossed over your shoulder if it's not already on the body armor. Grab your weapon. Make sure to lock and load at that time. Keep it on safe until you absolutely need to, but you must be ready. You must be condition 1, ready to go. You're making sure everyone gets down inside. You're pulling the rear security. If they succeed in breaching, getting inside, that is when you open fire. Put a couple rounds into the first people coming through the door, put them down, but do not stand there and die. Take down the first 1, 2 people, whatever it takes to slow them down, then you get the hell out of that spot where you were pulling the trigger from. You join your family inside that hide area. Let them go through. Check the house, burn it down, what the fuck ever. You're hidden inside your safe room. Now, ideally, if you have the time, you have the knowledge, you have the materials, you have an escape tunnel going from your little security shelter room outside. Now, it could go over to a neighbor's, or it could go back to your garage. Either way, you get away from that home. You get out of there. If it goes back to the garage, say you have an entrance into that tunnel underneath a workbench or whatever, I'd recommend having a small room underneath the garage that your family and you can sit in and hide in for at least 24 hours while they're going through, searching through the rubble of the home trying to find you. They're looking for those charred remains, whatever. Tearing stuff apart, literally tearing the house apart to find you. Once it's the next night, it gets dark again, you slip out, you get the hell out of there, and you don't look back. You come out and let's say you come out inside a neighbor's shed or whatever deal you have with the neighbor. Say the neighbor is a patriot, he's part of the militia and that type of stuff. He wasn't raided. You hide out inside that shed until the police presence dies down considerably. Once again, it may take 24 hours or more. They're going to be there for a few hours at a minimum, and even afterwards, they're still they'll maybe pull most of their people out, but they'll still leave a few behind watching for you to come out. So, probably have some type of bug out bag hidden somewhere. It's possible you may not have the safe room. Well, then at least try to get that emergency tunnel dug from your home to your garage, or from your home to somewhere in the property. Okay? There is a story, I don't have the specifics on it. I don't know the name of the person or any of that. Out in Michigan, late 90s, early 2000s, a militia member was raided by law enforcement. Law enforcement came in, they dismounted their vehicles, they started pouring fire into the home. Reportedly, the militiamen did get off a couple shots just to keep them interested that, hey, I'm in here. They poured thousands of rounds into the home. The place looked like a frickin' colander. Well, to make sure that the person inside was dead, he did resist. He fired off a couple return shots. He didn't fire the initial ones. He fired return shots. They then set fire to the home and burned it down. Once it was done burning, that's when they had the fire department come through, start going through looking for the body, looking for the bones. They did not find the person in the ashes. They didn't find even a single tooth in there. Word is this individual that they did the raid on, he had an escape tunnel hidden underneath his home. He got into that tunnel after firing off those first couple shots, and he got the hell out of there, went down that tunnel, and he came out a ways away from his home. And then he went into hiding and is to this day going from militia safe house to militia safe house. up in Michigan and the Midwest. Now you're probably saying you don't want to do that. You know, you don't want your family going safe house to safe house for years to come. And it'd be completely understandable. But quite frankly, if we get to a point where they're launching these types of red flag raids to take out patriots, I'm not going to give it too long afterwards before the war kicks off. So at that point, it's going to be, you know, making sure that your family's taken care of while you're off fighting. That's about the most you can do. Fencing, if you bring that up about putting in fencing, whatever fencing you put in, they're just going to drive through it, especially if they have MRAPs. It does not matter if it's cyclone fencing on metal posts. It does not matter if it's wooden fencing. They will drive through. They will find the weakest point. They will ram through it. Exceptions to that would be if it is field stone cemented together, at least 6 foot tall type things. They're not going to attempt to ram through that because it's going to be pretty solid. I know that you can probably put together a cinder block wall fairly quickly with cement, but most people do not reinforce those walls. They just go block on block with a little bit of cement. They do not fill the cores. They do not put any rebar between them. So it is pretty common that those types of walls and brick walls will get rammed and pushed in easily. They'll ram it with the front of the MRAP, making that breach. They'll back up a couple feet, and then the officers will go through that breach. Vegetation, if you want to go through and put in vegetation that's very thorny and that stuff to cut down on them being able to approach the house easily, go ahead. Booby traps. Can you put in, or should you put in booby traps? Probably not. Okay, unless a conflict is actually going on, unless society has collapsed, I do not recommend putting in any type of booby traps around the home, especially if you're inside a city. If you're out in the country, hey, you might be able to get away with it. But in the city, no, you're not going to be able to get away with that. So, just to reiterate, what do you do if they come raiding your home for a red flag warrant? You escape and evade. Live to fight another day. You are going to be outnumbered. You are going to be outgunned. You are not going to be able to defend your home, walk out the front door afterwards and say that was nothing, and then walk off into the sunset or disappear into the night. All you need to do, slow them from getting inside your home. Okay? Make them take as much time, as much effort as possible to get inside. The time that those improvements on the home are buying you, you use that time to get into hiding and hopefully get out of there through some type of escape tunnel. It's not impossible. It's not unheard of. So, well, and I'm sure someone's going to say, well, what can I use for an escape tunnel? I don't have a clue. You can use culvert. I mean, they actually had that even on Doomsday Prepper. Someone put in like a 2-foot culvert or whatever. It was tall enough that a person could crawl through it. Went from the home to an emergency shelter outside, and then I think they put in a piece of culvert from the emergency shelter to wherever they had stored a vehicle or somewhere off property so that they could get away if something happens. Another option, you go through, make it look like you're putting in utilities going out to the garage, so maybe this is a good time for putting in that bathroom out in your garage. You're going through, you're digging the ditch. Well, you're not really putting in utilities. You're digging a tunnel in there. You're lining the side and covering it back up. Maybe hiding it underneath a brand new sidewalk going out to your garage. That's a good way for cover. And anything weird that would come up on a ground penetrating radar scan might be passed off as being the sidewalk. Another option is tunneling underneath the sidewalk, say going from the house to your garage by keeping that little line underneath the sidewalk itself, digging underneath and then reinforcing as you go along. Well, what do you do with the dirt? You get rid of it any goddamn way you can. Get it out to the country, you know, dump it on the neighbor's dirt pile, whatever. Just make it disappear, covering up the fact that you're doing work at home. So maybe you're doing it by filling a few buckets at a time, loading them up inside the pickup truck in the garage, underneath the tarp, underneath the bed cover, inside the back, underneath your little camper top, whatever the hell you got on there, taking it out in the country, dumping it. So that's what I could come up with. Hopefully that gives you somewhat of an idea. I know it's probably not the answer you were looking for, but it's the only practical one that we really have. Now, if you're out in the country, you can do more, but most people are going to be city dwellers. That's why I did it off a city scenario. If you're out in the country, it makes it a lot easier for doing that escape tunnel and all that stuff too, if you think about it. And it increases the area you can run that tunnel to, and it not trespassing onto other people's property increases the chances of you being able to escape. Now, if you can't get your weapon and that stuff with you, you're moving way too fast, have a cache set up somewhere with a backup weapon, backup set of gear, and a rucksack or two filled with some type of rations. Waterproof the rations. You know, you want freeze-drieds, you want rice, you want stuff that is not going to rot quickly. So no MREs, no canned goods, nothing that's wet. Have a water filter inside there, have some empty canteens, all that stuff waterproof and protected inside the cache. As you're escaping and evading, you're going to the cache, digging it out, uncovering it, whatever it is, you're grabbing that weapon, grabbing that gear, and then you know, you want the stuff ready to go. You pull it right out of the cache, put it on, and get the hell out of there. And then move on, meet up with another militia member, another patriot, or a very trusted family member or neighbor. So, and then from that point on, that's completely up to you. Thank you for being patrons. Hopefully this gives you somewhat of an idea of what you could do. This is not necessarily the plan I have. This is just a plan that I think would probably work the best for most people. Good luck in your planning and whatever you come up with.